the Villanova Wildcats, a college basketball program that has produced one of the most incredible moments in college basketball. And yet, since those two historic March Madness runs, the Wildcats have been a program that once invoked fear into opponents now seems to blend in with the rest of mid-major schools. The volatility of college programs is no better exemplified by the rise and fall of Villanova, but the question is, how did this happen? Despite Villanova's program being founded in 1920, their first sense of notoriety happened in 1985, when Villanova completed the perfect upset. Villanova entered the tournament ranked the 8th seed, making them the lowest-seeded team to ever win a national title. Led by NBA prospects Ed Pinckney, Dwayne McClain, and Harold Presley, Villanova had the talent and the willpower to make this tournament a historic one.
Excluding Villanova's Cinderella run, this tournament was special for a few reasons. First, this was the first March Madness to include 64 teams, and the subsequent success of this formula was affirmed by the excitement of the tournament. Second, this run introduced the Big East as a powerhouse conference, with Villanova, Georgetown, and St. John's all making the Final Four.
It was the Big East's finest hour.
It was spectacular. It was unheard of. That three teams like that.
However, Villanova's Cinderella story came to its biggest challenge, facing Georgetown in the national championship. Despite the toughness of Georgetown, Villanova came out hot and claimed its first national title in program history. The Wildcats shot 78% from the field, which still remains as one of the highest shot percentages in the history of the Final Four. The win was historic, heroic, and euphoric.
We did it. We did it. We actually did it. We won the game.
I'm like, this is unreal.
While this game was won for the moment, it cemented the beginning of Villanova's success.
Following the incredible year Villanova had, they were unable to match the peak they established in 1985. While they had a few strong seasons, the farthest they made it in the tournament was the Elite Eight in 1988. Additionally, the Big East continued to assert dominance, with Georgetown, Syracuse, and UConn asserting their place in the conference. Finally, in 1992, the program took a turn. The legendary Coach Massimino left Villanova, leaving behind a legacy of perseverance, success, and impact. For the remainder of the 90s, Villanova struggled to match the level they showed in '85. The Wildcats hired Steve Lapis to take the lead, but Villanova struggled to find consistency throughout the decade. Despite winning the NIT championship in 1994 and making the Sweet 16 in 1997, Wildcat fans knew there was unlocked potential within the program. Steve Lapis would depart from the program at the turn of the century, leaving a spot for someone to steer the Wildcats back in the right direction.
In 2001, Jay Wright from Hofstra University was announced as the newest head coach for the Villanova Wildcats. This charismatic leader was excited for the opportunity to restore the former glory of the Wildcats, and restore he did. Now Wright did not get off to the strongest start as the leader of the Wildcats, with his first two seasons concluding with a losing record. However, Wright was ruthless in recruiting and believed in the talent he acquired, stating, "In the final analysis, you simply make the best decision you can. This is not a science. You are dealing with young people and no one can be exactly certain how the future will play out." Jay shifted his focus to tough and talented guards, and this would ultimately be the second foundation of Villanova's success. In 2005, Wright put together a guard-heavy lineup consisting of Randy Foye, Alan Ray, Kyle Lowry, and Mike Nardi. That same year, Villanova would reach the Sweet 16 by establishing a never-before-seen perimeter offense, subsequently coining the term 4-out-1-in scheme.
Hey, let's go play with the best players regardless of position, and they were all guards, so we went with it and had some success, and we stuck with it.
This offense was new to defenses, and it was difficult to adjust to Wright's new playstyle. In 2006, led by National Player of the Year candidate Randy Foye, the Wildcats would reach the Elite Eight, re-establishing their place as a powerhouse school. Villanova would see consistent growth and success over the next year. In 2009, the Wildcats would reach the Final Four, following the legendary game winner from Scotty Reynolds against Pitt.
I should say at least 4 seconds to get it up the floor. They're in trouble. Reynolds.
Unfortunately, this success was short-lived, as Villanova would face an early exit in the round of 32 in 2010, and back-to-back losing years in 2011 and 2012. This required Jay Wright to double down on what he knew best: culture and recruiting. In 2013, Wright brought in young stars such as Ryan Arcidiacono, Daniel Ochefu, Josh Hart, and Chris Jenkins. These players helped lay the foundation for a team built around grit and determination. Villanova would go on to win the Big East title in 2014, and then again in 2015. However, despite their regular season success, they exited the NCAA tournament in the round of 32 both years. Wright had built a great foundation, but they were labeled as regular season warriors. Wright knew something had to change if they wanted to take the next step. The 2016 season, Villanova went from a regular season warrior to an all-out dominant force. Once they hit the tournament, they were granted the number 2 seed and appeared unstoppable. They beat UNC Asheville by 30, Iowa by 21, Miami by 23, took down number 1 seeded Kansas in the Elite 8, and demolished Oklahoma by 44 points in the Final Four. There was only one team standing in their way from restoring their glory of the 1985 season, and that was the North Carolina Tar Heels.
April 4th, 2016, NRG Stadium in Houston, Texas. Villanova versus North Carolina.
Two proud programs colliding for a national title. The Tar Heels loaded with stars like Marcus Paige and Bryce Johnson. The Wildcats built on discipline, toughness, and the leadership of Jay Wright. The first half belonged to Carolina. Bryce Johnson dominated inside, Marcus Paige hit clutch jumpers, and the Heels looked like the more athletic, more experienced team. At halftime, UNC led by 5, and momentum was on their side. But the second half was all Villanova. Jay Wright's offense came alive, moving the ball with precision. Phil Booth, the unheralded sophomore, delivered the game of his life, 20 points off the bench. Slowly, the Wildcats flipped the script, building a 10-point lead with just over 5 minutes to go. North Carolina refused to fold. The Heels chipped away, possession by possession, and with just 4.7 seconds left, Marcus Paige launched an impossible double-clutch three-pointer that somehow dropped. The game was tied at 74. The building shook. We were seconds away from overtime. But Villanova had one last chance. Ryan Arcidiacono pushed the ball across half court. Chris Jenkins trailed the play, caught the pass, and let it fly from the top of the arc.
Villanova trying to go length of the court with Arcidiacono. 3 seconds at midcourt. Jenkins gives it to Jenkins for the championship. The national champions. And Jenkins hitting the winner.
The shot heard around the world. Villanova wins the national championship. Confetti fell, the Wildcats mobs the court, and Jay Wright's iconic calm reaction was etched into history. In one unforgettable night, Villanova basketball was reborn, from contender to champion. Just 2 years after Chris Jenkins' legendary buzzer beater lifted Villanova to the 2016 national championship, the Wildcats were back. Older, deeper, and even more dangerous. The 2016 title proved Villanova could climb the mountain. The 2018 season would prove they could dominate it. Led once again by Jay Wright, Villanova stormed through the 2017-18 campaign with a 36-4 overall record and a 14-4 mark in the Big East. This wasn't just a good team. This was a machine. Jalen Brunson, now a seasoned leader, won National Player of the Year, averaging nearly 19 points and 5 assists. Mikal Bridges became an elite two-way force, while Omari Spellman and Eric Paschal gave Villanova the size and shooting to overwhelm opponents. And then there was Dante DiVincenzo, the sixth man whose moment would come on the biggest stage. In March, Villanova once again turned the Big East tournament into their personal showcase, beating Providence in overtime to secure their third conference crown in 4 years.
They entered the NCAA tournament as a #1 seed, and from there, no one came close. Texas Tech fell in the Elite Eight, and then, in the Final Four, Villanova buried Kansas under a blizzard of threes, 18 in total, a new Final Four record, in a 95-79 rout. The championship game against Michigan was the exclamation point. Dante DiVincenzo erupted for 31 points off the bench. His performance wasn't just a spark. It wasn't just Villanova. It was a supernova. Villanova cruised to a 79-62 win, their second national championship in just 3 years. Villanova seemed unstoppable. 2 championships in 3 years, a coach who built culture and standards, and a program that every top high schooler wanted to become part of. However, despite strong seasons in the next several years, the unthinkable would happen in 2022.
We begin tonight with breaking news, a shocking announcement from Coach Jay Wright. The longtime Villanova basketball coach says that he is stepping down.
The greatest thing for us has always been just to be the coach at Villanova. That's, accolades or, winning games. It's not as big as just being the coach at Villanova.
In April 2022, just weeks after leading Villanova to yet another Final Four, Jay Wright stunned the basketball world by announcing his retirement at age 60. There were no scandals, no health crises, no steep decline. Just the sudden exit of a Hall of Fame coach who had built the Wildcats into a modern dynasty. Wright's departure left an enormous void. His replacement was Kyle Neptune, a former Villanova assistant who had spent just 1 season as head coach at Fordham before returning to take the reins. The 2022-23 season quickly showed how difficult the transition would be. Villanova struggled with injuries, most notably to Justin Moore, and inconsistent play. Despite a late push, the Wildcats finished 17-17 and missed the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2012. The challenges grew sharper in 2023-2024. Villanova added highly touted freshman Cam Whitmore, who flashed NBA talent but battled injuries and inconsistency before leaving for the draft after 1 season. The Wildcats again failed to recapture the dominance of the Wright era, slipping into the middle of the Big East standings. Beyond the box scores, the broader landscape of college basketball shifted dramatically. The rise of name, image, and likeness, NIL money, and the explosion of the transfer portal created a new arms race. Villanova, long built on culture, player development, and stability, suddenly found itself at a disadvantage against programs with deeper NIL collectives and more aggressive transfer strategies. Schools that once couldn't compete with Villanova's culture could now lure players with 6-figure deals. By 2024-2025, Villanova remained in transition. Kyle Neptune's tenure has been marked by flashes of promise, but also inconsistency, and questions about whether the Wildcats can remain a true blue blood in the modern game. The foundation Jay Wright built is still visible. The echoes of 2016 and 2018 remain powerful reminders of what Villanova basketball can be. But in this new era, where NIL money and roster churn dominate the sport, Villanova is fighting to prove it can adapt, compete, and reclaim its place among the elite.